So for P1A, we know that daily grazing systems in New South Wales are typically distributed on pastures that are temperate pastures throughout winter, and then which are high yielding and very good nutritive value, and then they switch to Kikuyu in summer, and that gives us seasonality in pasture production, composition, and also nutritive value, and that. On top of that, if we add the weather, then the pasture growth changes rapidly, and that becomes a limitation or a problem or a challenge for the farmers to just manage pasture properly. And if farmer wants to allocate feed accurately to cows, just to increase pasture production and milk production too, so management needs to be taken in order to monitor this pasture, just to have accurate information. From P1A, our angle is to use remote sensing technologies, just to see if we can improve, if we can manage these pastures, and also if we can assist farmers with new tools to just ease this management. As we heard from yesterday from the farmer, from the owner of this farm, he's switching to TMR system, because he says that the managing pasture here is really complicated and it's a challenge. So our case is just to try to assist farmers on that, for those that are deciding to stay on grazing dairy systems. So our approach is the following. So we have 14 farms distributed in the coast of New South Wales. Then we have four wonderful technical officers. We have Chloe, we have Josh and Zach, which is over there, and then we have Jacob. Jacob in Tokal, he couldn't make it today, and those farmers are co-working with us in this project. We are taking measurements on the ground on a weekly basis. We are collecting sentinel images from satellites, and also we are using pasture.io as a well-positioned tool that is in the industry, just to monitor pastures for decision making. So now I'm going to hand it to Josh.
Thanks, Martin. Thanks, everybody. My name's Josh Hooke. I'm an agronomist local around Taree and go up and down the coast. But I've been lucky enough to be involved with the P1 project along with Zach and Chloe. Chloe's doing down the south coast. And as we can just see just to try and get a bit of an image around it, we're here on the mid coast here now. We've got 4 farms here. We've also got 1 down in the Hunter, okay, and we've also got 5 farms down at Bega, and we've got 4 farms up around Lismore area, okay. So that's where the data's come along, and I think that's a really special part, is that this is probably some research that's been done right up and down the areas of the dairy areas, not just all done in one single spot, in the past, possibly in Camden or at a university. So this has actually been done on farms and getting real information of what farmers are actually doing. So I think that's a real big positive. Martin's already explained about the stuff that we're trying to do and all that sort of stuff. So all I want to do now is just quickly, we're going to give an example and talk to Pat, Neale and Alan Hooke, who's local dairy farmers here at Oxley Island. But before we go to there, I just wanted to point out that we have different, we've got a good example here of a farmer that has been using this technology, and where they've been going with it and what it means to them on their farm, and where the the potential is going forward. But we want to stress that it's not the same for everyone, and everyone uses data differently, and everyone uses it in different ways. So we all have different decision pathways of the way we want to go about and make those decisions. And I just and even in the project, we have farmers that are really wanting to get on board and have a crack at it, and then some that are struggling a bit more because they're wanting the actual data. So there's a different sort of thing, because what we do know is it's early days, and when the data isn't 100% right, sometimes some people that think differently really want that perfection. They want to know exactly how many kilos it is and all that sort of stuff. And the fact is we don't know at the moment, right? So that's why research gets done, but so we can try and improve these things. Okay, but trying to get the exact number and get that right, and that data means something to them, and then they don't get the confidence in it, so they sort of go, well, I don't want to use it, okay? Where someone like Pat and Alan and that are probably more along the lines that they're not too worried about the actual number or the perfection of it. they're trying to use it as another tool in their business to help them make more informed decisions. Okay, so they're saying, well, we're using it as a guide, and gives us trends. So it gives us trends across the farm, across paddocks, within paddocks, and also across time. Okay, so are things improving or are they slowing down? And that gives us information we make better decisions on. Okay, so some people, require that accuracy, like I said, and some people can just do things with concepts. And one thing I've learnt with farmers, and I was, early on in my career, I actually enjoyed data and I enjoy measuring things, and it's really cool when you can get the exact data and draw some graphs and everything looks perfect. But we know in farming, we can't always make decisions based on all those numbers and all that stuff, because sometimes they're a bit rubbery. But if we can get concepts, and for me, feeding pastures for profit is one of those things where there's a lot of concepts that really make change on farm, okay, that farmers can make really big decisions about by using concepts rather than actual numbers or data, okay? And you guys as farmers are doing that every day, that you do, okay? So I just wanted to get to that. And the other one is, from that sort of side is, the challenge of experience. So, I've got experience that I think that their cows are eating X, but now I've got this program that someone's asking me to use and it's saying it's Y. Okay, and there's that challenge of going, I think it's wrong, or I think it's right, or etc., rather than sort of going, well, even if it is wrong, can I use that information for something in terms of a trend and a concept, rather than having to worry about challenging that, is it right or wrong all the time. So, and then there's the model, like I'm saying, and then somewhere in there's an actual, right? And that actual is always changing, and somewhere there would be an actual that would be ideal. But what we also know is, the model might be right sometimes, and your gut feeling or your experience will be right sometimes. But to me, it's about having some objective information that can then help you make better decisions and more informed decisions. So, without more to do, I want to invite Pat and Alan up. So, Pat Neale owns a dairy farm at Oxley Island, only about 25 minutes from here, on the right on the coast, and been dealing with a lot of water, very similar to like Sam Nicholson you've seen there yesterday, over the last 2 years. And Alan is the farm manager there with Pat as well. So I'm just going to hand it over to Alan now, okay, and I'll help Alan, and we'll talk about what they've been using this information for. Okay, so we've just got some snapshots of the app that is Pasture.io, it's called, that Alan and Pat have been using during the project. Again, like I said, we're early days, we're only 12 months into this, but I think there's a really good story here to tell about how these guys have been working together on their farm and how it's been coming out for these guys. So Alan, I'll hand it over to you, mate.
How you going, guys? One thing is really that I like about it is the map. You can see the different colours. The blue is paddocks that are ready to graze. The orange ones are ones that sort of just been grazed, and the green one is at your pre-cover.
And the good thing about this, so this was last week when we done it, and there's a lot of silage cut, so that's why we've got a lot of orange paddocks. Okay, so we had a lot of wet conditions, we couldn't get on to cut silage, things were getting past their best. There's a lot of paddocks that got cut at once. Pat worked pretty hard a week before his wedding to try and get it all off. Got married on the weekend too, so congratulate him if you're going around. But yeah, that's one of the reasons why they're all orange like that.
Yep, and the paddocks we currently have out for silage at the moment is this blue one here. What's the other one?
This one and A9, and there's probably 1, 2 there that will come.
Yeah, and one thing too is I really like about it is the pasture feed wedge, where you actually set your pre-cover. There's 4 things to get your pre-cover number is your stocking rate and your leaf stage, how quick you're going around, and your residual. You do all that calculations, and that will give you your pre-cover where that you want to target at. And you can see that we sort of these paddocks here, they're reaching pre-cover. You can see we're starting to drop below the target line, and hopefully once we graze these ones will get up to that target line. Otherwise, if we start falling below, that's where we've sort of got to start adding something to the diet, like probably an extra kilo of grain, and yeah.
Yeah, no, it's good. So, just to back that up, like I think this target thing of being able to just click on a paddock and then work out how many feeds we have based on some objective data is really, really cool.
Yeah.
So moving forward, once we do that, you want to explain now what this photo here is?
Yep. There's a new update they've just done is the target rotation. You can filter it by day and night. That's actually filtered E42. Oh, that's a day paddock. You can click on it and it'll actually tell you by your target rotation. That's how many feeds are in that paddock, and that's pretty much gives you a rough estimation in kilos of dry matter per cow. You can actually look here too how many days ago that we were grazing. We're grazing it 16 days ago. Another good thing too, when Pat gets around, he does a lot of fertilising. I can look on there too, and it'll actually tell me that if we've got a withholding of like 12 days on the fertiliser, and I can say, well, like he's got fertiliser on it, and we can't accidentally put cows in there.
Yeah, and just to come back up onto that, so if they've got a 12-day withholding period on that fertiliser or chemical that they put into the system when they do it, okay, these bars around that paddock will turn orange. So you actually recognise that paddock's still within holding. And also in the paddock view, it'll come up around the paddock as an orange bar as well, just so that safety point of view from nitrate poisoning or other chemicals getting into the milk and etc. etc. It's really good as a safety option to be able to put in there as well.
Yep.
So just to before we come off to this one, I think it's really important, this target rotation, and this is what I think is really, really good about this project. It's not just about us using someone's software and then these guys having a crack at it. What it's really good about is this has actually been put in there because of feedback from farmers. Okay, so as Alan said, before he would have to do all this number crunching and working out how much grass he had divided by the days, work out how many cows he's got, try and work his fence areas, right? The system actually knows all that. So we've given some feedback to them. They've taken that on board, and within 2 weeks, they've put this in there. And this basically here is very similar to if anyone's used the rotation right tool, okay? Also takes that sort of stuff into account. So now we've got a bit of a digital way of doing it rather than, and that's what we're going to talk about next, is how this digital stuff, being able to access it better in the paddock. Thanks, Alan. Yeah, well, it's at the end of the day, all these things are just tools, and everyone can choose what tool they want to use. The FPFP concepts and the way they do, and just quickly, Alan, I'll get you to mention or Pat, the importance of these tools, but they've still got to use their skills. Okay, so this isn't an autopilot, such a thing where you forget and get. But these guys have still got to train themselves, train their workers, all that sort of stuff, so they can look at the residuals, they can look at the pre-cover, they can set what they want in the app, right, based on what's happening in real time. Okay?
Yeah, we agree with that.
Yeah. So just moving forward now, so I think what we wanted to do here is just a couple of things that we think that we've got change, not from a data sense, but from a management point of view and where these guys are at from 12 months ago when we implemented where we're at. So, Pat, do you want to just give us a call about, obviously your skill sets and you using rotation right tool for years, but then over the last 12 months you've progressed to this sort of thing?
Yeah. So, both Alan and myself have done the Pasture for Profit program, and the basic skills of using that and using leaf appearance to manage our pasture. And previously we've used plate meters, we've used scanners on motorbikes to use for help us with our management. So basically when we're doing that, we're looking at growth rate and average pasture cover. So if that's lifting or getting faster, we know we can start planning for what we do. And so this is what two of the main figures that I look at, and it'll give me the growth rate and the average cover, so I can see where I am, where I'm planning, how much I need to be moving forward. And I guess it's the same with Alan, like we're looking at these numbers and allocating the feed, and one of the things we've just done, we were looking at it and it was the issue we have, and we talk about it, and I guess it is that skill from the Pasture for Profit program and knowing what to look for when the residuals in paddocks. And I noticed, I said to Alan, well, it looks like they're eating it down too low. And so we've gone, well, we've got them allocated. They were having 7 kilos, I think, of grass morning and night. Yeah, and the residual was set at 1,500, and they were cleaning it down to that. And I guess what I saw was they were eating into the clumps. So we've said, well, let's try and move that, and we'll give them another kilo a day, both morning and night. And I guess what we saw was some movement in milk. And so, but we did see that they did leave, with that extra kilo, they did leave a lot more residual. So we dealt with that. So then we reduced it back to half a kilo morning and night, and they're cleaning it up. And I guess those kind of figures, like when you look at that, I think it's close to 1.5 litres a cow. And like that's just money in the bank and the cream in the crop. So I guess what this gives us, this is the conversation starter to start making good decisions on the farm.
Yeah. And I know, you know, Alan, yourself, obviously very now involved. Like I know early on when I used to come to your farm, it was obviously driven quite a lot by Pat. And now it looks like, you know, and not the reins have been handed over, but I see a lot more confidence, Pat, you have in Alan. And, you know, Alan as well, you know, you can use this thing remotely now rather than having to go back to the dairy and use the dairy computer and work everything out. Alan rings me on his holidays and, you know, talks to me about the grass that's growing because he's using the app and making some decisions even when he's on holidays for the workers as well.
Yeah. And I guess one of the other apps we use is Field Margin, and what Alan does is he's able to say if there was a paddock, well, it's not there anymore, but one of these paddocks, and we're getting 3 days out of it, he's just, we know the area, and he can break it up for them into 3 equal sections and allocate the strip, and then they've got to put the fence out where it's shown. And because I know that was one of the things my father had, like growing up, was one of his main complaints. The cows would go into a paddock and they'd lift in milk, which was supposed to get 3 days, and then the following 2 days they got half the allocated feed in the first day, and then the rest got split in half. So it's it takes a lot of the guesswork out for people, and they can, it's just makes it, and it's just taking the guesswork out of it, and we're a lot more accurate. We've probably been quite fortunate that we've had some breaks in the weather and been able to really take advantage of that and have confidence to cut the silage.
It gives us early decisions too.
Yeah. Yeah, we've done a lot more planning, ordered silage wrap, so that we're fully organised in what we're doing.
Yeah, beautiful. And just to finish up, I think you know, the building confidence and the challenging of decisions, and I see that a lot more now. You know, between you two, and even when I'm out there, I'm able to, you know, I'm going out to measure the grass for the project, but I can send them photos. I can look on the app as well and know exactly when it was grazed. Okay, so for me, for information, if I'm going out as an advisor, I've got all the information at my fingertips. I don't need to ring Pat and go, when did you graze that paddock? And he goes, well, last week when the tractor fell off, the tyre broke, or, you know, because usually it's you relate what you've done to something that went wrong or etc. So, you know, you're not sort of guessing when you last grazed those paddocks. It's all there at the touch of a button. And, you know, the fact that Alan can go out there and make informed decisions whilst he's in the paddock and not have to go back to the dairy, sit down, take time out, I think it's another one. So that's for up here. So we're going to hand over to Chloe now just to give a bit of an overview of what's going on down on the south coast as well.
Hi everyone, so my name's Chloe and I'm part of the P1A team down south. So we're monitoring 5 farms on a weekly basis with regular communication between farmers and myself, chat about updates on the farm, herd health, paddock activities, irrigation status. But all 5 farms, they do differ in practice, management practices, pasture species, herd size, but all are using pasture.io to make on-farm decisions. So we have some farmers who use the pasture.io app in conjunction with a visual assessment and their rotation right tool to best pick the next week's worth of grazings. We have farmers that have been short on time at some points and have been in the dairy and relied solely on the tool to make that decision for the next day. And then we have farmers who have used it rather than for direct grazing, have used it for forward planning and thinking, where they'll look at features on the app such as days till next leaf emergence, and there's also a 7-day pasture forecast which tells the user is it increasing or decreasing, and then these farmers have used it to sort of plan and cut for silage. A lot of farmers have also expressed that the platform is good to store all the information, all the grazing records, historically and up to date, as well as all the paddock activities, as you've seen. But yeah, it's really interesting that all these farmers have really welcomed the platform, and we're excited to see the results and the changes in productivity and profitability that will come over the next year.
Thanks very much, Chloe. So that's the end of that presentation now, but we've got question time now for Chloe, Martin, myself, or Pat, or Zach, or Pat and Alan.
Yeah, I've got a question. Chloe, it's sort of for you, but it's sort of for Martin. Thanks so much for the help on P2 as well. We really appreciate it, and Josh as well. But I'm just looking at the squares to the fits for the different areas, and they're just so different. Like, you've got a really good fit here,
Yeah.
and then it's not quite as good down, you know, the mid coast. Well, the mid coast's not quite as good as the north coast, and the south coast is really different. So why?
Well, yeah. Thanks for the question, for the time. Just to give more on that. We just wanted to highlight that the different regions, we are having like different. We are seeing different things. Pasture types are completely different. So it's really nice to see this across the data set. The data there is only organized by region, but then if we start subdividing all the information by season, for instance, if you're in summer, autumn, winter, and spring, so the slopes are changing. So we are implementing all those calibrations. So every single dot that you see there in those scar plots is a single cut. So then we are implementing each single calibration for each farm and for each moment of the year. So we're seeing that is changing. So in the first time, so we wanted to have like our dream is to have like a single regression for all the pastures across New South Wales. So then we can implement that calibration throughout New South Wales. But then we see that it's changing a lot. So the good thing is that we have the guys taking these really good measurements. So we are classifying all the calibration cuts in terms of pasture composition, in terms of dry matter content, and in terms of everything. So we can then use those calibrations to our plate meters, so we can have an accurate plate meter, so then we can test how the satellite is tracking on that one. Yep.
A thing I'd add to that is seasonal conditions as well. So with all the wet weather and flooding up here was a lot sort of worse than what we had down the south coast. So we weren't able to keep the pasture, you know, under control. So we've had pasture getting a lot out of control. So, you know, the measurements, you know, when you got COQ, you're completely out of control. Then we also have some paddocks in the data set that, you know, may have been too wet and not been grazed for, you know, 2 or 3 grazings. Okay, so that's adding some muddiness in there. So what you're seeing there is all the raw data, and I think there's going to be needing some cleaning up of certain paddocks, because we've got a lot of photos of these paddocks as well. So obviously with satellites, we think, you know, once they get to a certain height, you know, the saturation goes out, so we can't get that relationship anymore. Okay, but you know, the other one, my gut feeling is the better the pasture's managed and the better it's under control and the better grazing management we get, we seem to get a better relationship. Okay, and we sort of see that when we compare a couple of different farms as well.
Any other questions? Yep. Probably a bit of a silly question, but have you picked up any difference in managing flat pastures versus sort of hilly type farms? And do you correct for that? Has there been any difference? So
there is some paddocks that are on hills and there are some paddocks that are on flat. Nothing, again, it's all just raw data, so we wouldn't have segregated any of that hill and flats at the moment. But I'm guessing that there could be something, but we'll have to wait until the data comes out, and then he has time to pull them all apart and have a look at that. That's another PhD project after the project after the project. It's a good thing about data, it can keep getting used.
Can you use it historically to check out how much actual you've got off the paddocks to work out whether you need to resow it or how much fertiliser to apply? And then can you use that information for your food safety?
Yeah, okay. So the question is, can we use it historically? The question is, the data does go back, so the satellites are always kept, and then they can go back well, you might even know, but it's like they can go for 5-10 years, etc. Okay. Problem is, a lot of these things need input, so they need to know when they're grazed. They need to know when they're fertilised, because that all goes into the algorithms. So if all that information hasn't been put in, it won't be as accurate.
But if you have, like, say when you start,
Yep.
January, and then you have a full 12 months, can you go back on that 12 months and see actually which paddock you've actually harvested?
The most feed out of?
So many
Yep.
times after,
Yep,
or
you will be
that
able
one
to.
wasn't performing, or that sort
Yes.
of thing. And then can you keep the data to prove to food safe that you've done the right thing, like withholding
Yes.
time?
Yeah, that's right. And then you've got information there to say that these are the grazing periods. This is when it all went on. This is the withholding periods. So all that data's there. Yep.
Yeah, the feature for pasture.io is not only to follow the productivity of the paddocks, but also it's like a cloud. I mean, everything is going in that direction. So all the data is there. As you put it in the handout, we have the auto grazer so all the farms that we have, they have like GPS collars. So all the grazings, all the recorders are entering into a system automatically. Plus they can put all the fertilizer activities, all those things. So it all stays there. And that is another feature for the system too. Yeah. Exactly.
One more question, but can we try and have a question for Pat or Alan, if there is one? Yep.
Might not be, they might be able to answer it, but you won't answer it. You've got your yield, pasture yield, your rotation, and your residues after that. Is this able to correlate back to milk yield associated with that?
That is our dream. Yes. We want to play with the data. That's we are interacting with P2. So because in P2 they are following the cow performance. So our dream is just to follow that one in terms of pasture production, and then because everything in the end is measuring milk production. So milk response needs to be there. Yeah, of course. Yeah, perfect.
And you know the goal for me, and I've done this in the past, but the goal for me is to have that all live. So a farmer has a dashboard. Right, and they do their grazing, and then all of a sudden, the milk tanker comes, that feeds into it. Back calculations happen like dairy base, right? And every time a milk tanker comes, you're getting feedback in terms of profitability, feed harvested, feed inputs, all those sorts of things, return on milk solids, all that sort of stuff. You know, that's the dashboard everyone should have every time a tanker comes. Pete?
I mean, one of the objectives with Kaikiu is to actually give quality things. So while this gives very good correlations with biomass on ryegrass, with Kaikiu we want good quality. So it's hopefully predicting, in time going to predict you need to graze at a certain time, not for dry matter, but for quality and maintaining that quality. So
Did you have a question for Pat?
Yeah,
Alan?
just how valuable is this pasture.io to you guys, like in saving time and in what you actually do with your paddocks now?
You better admit that Alan uses it.
Yeah, Alan uses it. I glance at it. But yeah, it's probably helped with allocations and feed wastage so that we're not doing it. And I guess we're probably learning something too, like, people talk about allocating or intake from cows as so much of their body weight, and we're probably exceeding that. So it's all about testing it and know when you're testing it, so that the other day when we worked out they could eat another half a kilo morning and night, we're like looking at this, and that's where doing pastures for profit and understanding what you're looking at and all those key things. And I guess it's still coming back to us putting quality feed in front of the cows.
So it does give you indication of when you should actually harvest it for silage if it's gone all the way to the
Oh yeah, it's just a record, so we know. Yeah, like Alan's got that black line, and so we know exactly. And so what he's got, these are all the paddocks that are in, and so these ones he's taken out. This one, they're actually not in the rotation. So we know that's what we need to keep going.
Do they automatically pop back in whenever they...
Oh, it's a manual thing to put them back in, but that's how we're using it. It's just like the Pastures for Profit program, the paper, except we don't have, there's no pegs, we're just doing it and we're getting it till it's right.
There's also too, there's a image that you can bring up from the satellite. Anything that's locked on past pre-grazing covers, like it's got over chemical closure.
Yep.
The satellite image will bring the real dark blue up.
Right.
And you can actually filter it, and it can actually filter like a tree out and all sorts of stuff, will actually tell you that paddock's gone past and take out the silage.
Well, you should have eaten it.
Should have been for the rate, that's right. Yeah. And we had that this year, like because of all the wet conditions. We had a big bust out in spring when it started getting warm, and then it kept raining every week. So most of the farm was nearly going to be closure, right? Apart from the 4 or 5 tracks we just grazed. So we just couldn't get on cutting them, right? So that sort of thing happens. But then they were able to recognise which ones to pull out. They pull them out so they're not in the feeds, and then away they go again.
And also the intra-paddock variability, because this is the paddock level, and then you have like in the regions within the paddock.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's the time for questions, unfortunately. Sorry. I've been given the hurry up.